Welcome to Cat the Minion Energy Work. My name is Teresa, but you can call me Cat. Today is for discussion. What in the actual fluff is energy work? Discuss. But first we need to define what we want to talk about. So I've prepared a small spider web of glossary terms. Let's start with panpsychism. A plurality of separate and distinct beings or minds constitutes reality. This would indicate that we create our collective reality by our thoughts and our existence. Take also the view that mentality is fundamental and ubiquitous to the natural world, which leans more into the realm of animism, where essentially everything has some life spark, or more precisely, presence of mind to it. In fact, panpsychism is derived from Greek pan, meaning all, and psyche, meaning soul or mind. There are some who believe there are biological artificial entities in the universe that do not have souls, which is something I don't fully agree with and is outside the scope of this discussion. However, it is worth pointing out that rocks have a magnetic memory that may endure for millions or even billions of years, which is fun to think about when considering relationships between silicon chips and, say, crystal skulls. Back from that sidebar, what we're most concerned with is that soul roughly translates to something that experiences sensation, and that mind is indication of consciousness. To summarize, panpsychism is the doctrine or belief that everything material, however small, has an element of individual consciousness. Now we need to break down what consciousness means. Usually we think of only humans and occasionally fellow biological creatures as being aware. Consciousness is the fact of awareness by the mind of itself and the world, and the state of being aware and responsive to one's surroundings. To me, it's fairly obvious that we're talking about a feedback loop, wherein the thing or being that is conscious is essentially a learning robot. I act upon myself and or my environment, receive data, and then modify my behavior, that is, respond based on what I've discovered. The colloquial negative of this is play stupid games, win stupid prizes. And the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. Let's just take a brief detour to define awareness a little better. Awareness is knowledge or perception of a situation or fact. But more interestingly, concern about and well informed interest in a particular situation or development, which goes back into what I just said about feedback loops. But well-informed interest in particular indicates to me intention. A serviceable definition of intention is a thing intended, an aim or plan. Fairly simple and straightforward. But what caught my eye was the medical definition of intention, the healing process of a wound. This is particularly relevant to the whole point of energy work, as we'll get to shortly. Additionally related to our upcoming energy work discussion, in particular co-creation with the universe, is my favorite description of intention. A directed impulse of consciousness that contains the seed form of that which you aim to create. Let's look at another description of consciousness then. Consciousness is intrinsic causal power associated with complex mechanisms such as the human brain. You only have to take a few seconds trip to Google to discover the wonderful world of neurons in the universe taking on the same form. It would seem foolish to think that a mechanism for information transfer in the human head and the exact same structure in the same environment, say for scaling, would not at least have potential for the same job, i.e., consciousness. If consciousness is intrinsic causal power, what does that mean? We find a definition of causal power to be the probability with which a cause produces an effect when the cause is present. This is a little bit like when a tree falls in the forest, does anyone hear it? Or a little bit like Pixar, it didn't happen. A little more basically, causal power can bring about changes in the world. This last definition basically means that causal power is energy. This sounds roughly the same as the capacity to cause movement, describing energy, and noting that it can be kinetic, chemical, electrical, or nuclear, which does involve some kinetics. We're told that neurons are electrical in nature, and we know that our consciousness appears to be seated in the brain, which of course only works because of the neural network. This seems bolstered by some further definitions of energy. The strength and vitality required for sustained physical or mental activity. Physical and mental powers typically as applied to a particular task or activity. Power derived from the utilization of physical or chemical resources, especially to provide light and heat or to work machines. In a slightly more woo slant, this last definition could be construed to relate to light as light work, heat as radiance, and to work machines as to operate the meat robot, the human body. We're not really discussing light work in particular in this video because, in my opinion, light work is a subset of energy work. But let's take a brief look at that second idea, radiance. The physics definition is the emission of energy as electromagnetic waves or as moving subatomic particles, especially high energy particles which cause ionization. Ionization is just the process in which an atom or molecule acquires a positive or negative charge by losing or gaining electrons. The resulting ions are referred to as a species. For biology, radiation is a divergence out from a central point, in particular, evolution from an ancestral animal or plant group into a variety of new forms. Isn't it coinkydink that new biological forms can also be species? The expansion of energy, new forms, harmonics, is similar to what I talk about in my tarot videos about Aries energy representing growth out of an anchored central point. Heat could be described as a change in temperature, and we see historically in biology, sometimes that is literally all it takes to change the sex organs of an organism or to produce a mutation. Now, for the third part about energy as the power to work machines, we have, is the human body a quantum machine? Classical computers have much less computing power, so is the human body a quantum computer? Yes, every cell is a tiny quantum computer. But how biology and computers are different is that in the body, there is no central processor like in computers. Instead, every cell of the body is a tiny computer by itself. We're made of billions of cellular quantum computers that perform processes by themselves. Each cell contains all our source code. The human brain is like a supercomputer made up of billions of tiny quantum computers. So in essence, the human body is like billions of transformer combiner robots, and we use energy to run them. Speaking of inside the human body, the word energy derives from the Greek suffix en, meaning within, and ergon, meaning work, to do work within. Within you and without you, so saith the prophets, the Beatles. A lot of definitions of energy simply say that energy means being able to do work, and work means exerting energy on something. Thanks. That helps. A better basic definition is activity involving mental or physical effort done in order to achieve a purpose or result. This goes back to what we just looked at related to intention and change. A better physics definition is the exertion of a force overcoming resistance or producing a molecular change. And work equals force times displacement, along with when a force produces a displacement in the body. Force just means very basically a push or pull exerted on one object by another. Resistance comes from late Latin resistere, meaning hold back, and is defined very basically as lack of sensitivity, and slightly less basically as the ability not to be affected by something. So we see very casually that work is essentially to reach out and touch someone in a way that overcomes their ability to ignore you. Consider the Family Guy clip where Stewie keeps saying, "Mom, mom, mummy, mom, 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 mummy, mom," and so on until she's finally like irritated like all the hell. She's like, "What?" And he says, "Hi." and runs away. He has exerted work on another body in the system to cause an intentional change of stasis. The basis for energy work does rely on the idea of panpsychism. It's not necessarily that everything has consciousness, it's that everything is consciousness, or everything is energy, and energy is light, which is electromagnetic force, which intentionally causes all other things to happen via work, resistance, and radiation in order to expand the overall awareness of itself by establishing a massive data log of causes and their effects. If we're all pieces of the consciousness squeezed out of the network into the meat space, whether we're holographic or a computer program ourselves or illusory in some way, we still operate in a field that has rules we can learn. We operate in our own space under the same code, more or less, as the universe. So if we go back to that definition of intention, a directed impulse of consciousness that contains the seed form of that which you aim to create, we can see that we're basically saying that we can make our thought forms manifest into reality, and that the universe will have to match our energy by running the program we've selected. This is a metaphorical description of co-creation. Plant a literal seed, water it, leave it alone for a few weeks, and then the universe is like, hey, the bamboo program is done compiling, and a few days later you have a big ass stick of bamboo sticking up out of the ground. If you want to realize your vision of achieving a job or a relationship, if your program code isn't corrupted, that is, your energy is flowing, your intentions aren't distorted, then the universe is bound to render your vision in your reality. I think this is why people get so jazzed up about vision boards. It can be frustrating if you have your heart set on a certain goal, and instead of arriving in your chariot, it feels like you're being drawn and quartered. The issue here has to do with viruses in your program. That is, soul contracts, shadow issues, energy blockages, and so on. Some of the issue is that we need to be in certain places doing certain things as prerequisite experience that we will need to combine those skills to achieve our long-term goal. Like if I learn to wedge clay and then I learn to scale fish, but what I really want to do is run a pizzeria, I may think this is bullshit. Why can't I just do what I want? But you would have needed to learn to slice accurately and quickly to dice vegetables and to knead the dough more efficiently. So it's only when you've gotten nearer your goal you may realize how well those skills actually do combine. Like the transformer. For me, energy work has more to do with looking at the neural network behind the vision or the code behind the program. It's not always looking at someone's relationship and being like, "Hee ho, girl, you need to get that ring, that dinner, the clothes, and dump his bitch ass." It's looking at a template for a set of scenarios. So, for example, you could make a castle stage set, and one play called Hamlet could be performed on it. This is one person's energy scenario. Another person's energy scenario might be the Rocky Horror Picture Show. And then the next person's energy is Monty Python and the Holy Grail. And another person's energy in this template is Bugs Bunny giving the big fuzzy monster a perm and some acrylics. So even now that I've thrown down these examples, I have to say, why did I pick these? And what do they have in common? Without looking up plots on imdb.com. So now, like, I need to know what I know from memory or from intuition. All right, so let me think about this, right? Hamlet, Holy Grail, Rocky Horror, Bugs Bunny, Monster. Someone's trying to kill someone in each of these. There's plot and intrigue and the search to achieve some ultimate goal of heroism. The energy work would report that a death cycle is present related to releasing ancestral trauma, and that the querent is either in the polarity of damsel in distress, which is distorted Virgo or maiden energy, or they're insisting on being the hero, which is an egoic version of the Knight of Wands energy. In order to gloss over inner child wounding related to abandonment or exposure of some sort. That might not be what someone wants to hear if they're interested in whether or not their person is thinking about them today. But it's actually more useful in the long run because it can help you understand their subconscious motivations and why you react to them the way you do. I think the term light work might normally be considered interchangeable with energy work, but in my opinion, it's only part of the cake. We have light and shadow. Things must be in balance. We live in a polarized or dualistic world. Even the ionization produces the positive cations and the negative anions. What is light work, though? We think of light, we think of photons, sunshine, radiance, life, expansion, healing, knowledge, and illumination. The shadow would be more of like a fears, shrinkage, consumption, obscurity, chaos, death, and the unknown kind of situation. When energy work is to be completed, I mean, the joke here is that it's never really completed. But I mean, what I'm saying is that in order to have balanced energy work progress, you must work the light and the shadow. You can't throw down a handful of crystal chips and light candles and sage and call it good if the skeleton under the floorboards is still like, hey man, it's kind of scary down here. We see a decent balance of the light and shadow work in places like the Luminous Warrior, which is a card from the Mystical Shaman Oracle deck. So the character on the card is someone who is no longer afraid of the dark because they can glow from within. We need to embrace the darkness for what it contributes to the overall cause and effect data points. But like with the Luminous Warrior, we don't have to become it to appreciate the contrast. Like a dark being isn't necessarily at fault for your nightmares of your house on fire if that's its only job in the universe. Give that kid an employee of the month and tell it they did a good job, and the energy dissipates because it's completed its task. This nod to task success on the shadow being's part creates ultimate resistance for you against it. You can no longer be affected by its machinations. You've called cut, and the actor playing the villain relaxes into their normal, more balanced self. Working with energy, that is, to make change to the flow of information, can take many forms. For simplicity, we can say that energy is what makes us feel able to do things, to feel in flow with our identity, and to be able to interact with our environment. We can compare our body to a battery and consider that we have multiple layers of bodies all nested within each other. We can say that we have a body for each of the four classical elements. Fire is the spiritual body, water is the emotional body, air is the mental body, and earth is the physical body. When the physical body is weak or exhausted, we say we're low on energy and must consume nutrients or have rest to build more energy so that we can continue to enact change, that is, move with the physical world. When we experience great distortions in the emotional body, we can also feel drained and exhausted. Low energy in the spiritual body can manifest as not wanting to be conscious or alive, or to feel hollow and distance from a sense of self or fulfillment. The mental body, the consciously driven brain, the waking identity, can feel low on energy from overstimulation like qualifying exams, understimulation like boredom, or common distortions like worry and anxiety. I mean, it seems like a lot of energy work focuses on the water and fire of it all, and fewer practitioners consider the thought processes, and then fewer still the physical body. I mean, maybe that's because the monolith of modern medicine has a monopoly on physical medicine and thinks it knows the nuts and bolts of mental treatment. Holistic medicine is also poo pooed as being at best placebo, yet people still seek out aid from the woo woo, the new age, the spiritual gurus, the back alley card slingers of YouTube, and perfume salons with carpeted tables. Now comes Reiki. Now comes yoga. Now comes meditation and acupuncture. Now comes herbal therapies and sound healing and light therapy and art therapy and incense and so on. Now comes hair dye and piercings and fashion. Now comes saunas and sweat lodges and swimming and breathing and tai chi and hiking and climbing trees. Any activity or object of fascination that humans find relaxing or joyous or fun can fall under the umbrella of energy work. This can range from enthusiastic training of the Kama Sutra to a day of quiet reading to collecting and customizing your favorite toys. One of the more socially acceptable forms of energy work is the making of art. Popular culture heavily favors the performing arts of theater, music, and dance. But these forms are usually better for release or stimulation. Textile arts seem to be better at providing ease through physical comfort. And visual arts like drawing and painting and writing are better for expressing and conveying thoughts and feelings. It would be impossible for me to talk about how I do energy work without talking at least briefly about the Akashic record or records. You could say it's the compilation of data that the universe has stored, the computer that the universe runs its programs on, the trajectory of all things past, present, future, and sideways, a huge library of everything. I mean, if you want a bit more on this, pause this video for a little bit and watch my energy report number 26. And the URL will be down in the description box below. I mean, basically, if we want to physically divine something about anything, we can say the information's coming from the Akashic record, even though it might be fun to say, I don't know, I just pulled it out of my ass. The majority of the energy work that I do is visual art. I'm usually trying to express a feeling or an aspect of my personality. When I'm doing abstract psychedelic art in particular, I'm usually trying to convey a concept that has to do with movement of energy or the structure of the universe in general. While I do believe in the therapy of making art, I mean, in particular, because I can't not make art, the act of observing art can affect your energy. You can change the vibes in your area by putting a subtle muted art piece, like a landscape or a sketch of a kitten, or you can blow out your whole wall with something loud and vibrant like I like to do. Now, you can take a piece of exciting art with you. And much like I refer to the comfort that my tattoos give me, even though I hardly see them, like I know they're there, it's like with a keychain or a laptop cover or even a shot glass. I want to infuse whatever I'm doing with the vibration or concept that piece of art is giving. It's not really that different from people who have, like a university sweatshirt or like a set of Baby Yoda drinking glasses or like a Pokemon steering wheel cover, for example. The artwork still conveys a feeling like comfort or excitement, an idea, a vibe, or just something so that it's easier to find a significant encounter with another consciousness. That is like a conversation starter for a new friend that you have for 2 minutes out of your whole life, purely by chance when you're on your way across a park to get a snack at a taco wagon. The conclusion of that bit is that the shirts and accessories I have for sale with my art on it, like Cafe Press, Redbubble, and so on, aren't just there to fish for passive income. It's actually to take those artworks and wear or carry them in your environment to shift the energy. Like, I know I feel a little more exciting when I leave the house in my geomancy shirt. The other main energy work that I do is divination. I read tarot cards, oracle cards, Scrabble tiles, and charms. The readings are basically what I do with my art, but in reverse. These divination tools are presenting images that code information in the universe, the Akashic records, and I have to say what that is, instead of me infusing the information into an image for other people to interpret and feel on their own. I do freestyle a bit with the cards and such because I also rely on my clairaudience, claircognizance, and clairvoyance to do that work. And I also do some entity channeling when they bother me enough, which usually manifests more like an interview or a repeat what I'm saying game. I don't think it's that different than meditating or talking to yourself. They're just frequencies that come in a bit like a two-way radio. I've also started to make my own divination tools. I've got an angel oracle deck in the pipeline, along with at least two other card projects for some point in the future. I've started experimenting with wearable crystals. I've made a couple of bracelets. I've made my paper charm kit available to others for printing and customizing as a PDF. I've begun making palm-sized cat plushie energy work buddies that come with some sort of small crystal or chips inside of them. And they hold an energy work tool like a potion bottle, a craft foam lotus, and some other goodies that I have planned. These little kitties are the same as any adorable kit you might have decorating your home or altar, but they've been created with the intention of being able to focus or amplify that causal power that we talked about earlier. When it comes to doing energy work, a lot of it has to do with intention. We can change the outcome of scientific experiments with intentions and expectations. And that's why they have to run tests double blind and why the placebo effect exists. My view and practice of energy work is to try to express what that cosmic feedback loop is, what it does, what it feels like, and to help other people understand that and be part of it. If you've made it all the way to the end here, thank you for watching and be sure to check out all my things. There's more information down in the description box underneath the video and in the outro starting now.
Thank you for watching. Stay connected with Cat the Minion Energy Work. Check out my complete suite of goods and services conveniently from my Linktree. linktr.ee/cattheminion. Color your way into some relaxation with my coloring books Energy Forms and Draco Forms on Amazon. Get groovy with fashion and home accessories from my Cafe Press or Redbubble shops. Decorate your environment with original art and divination tools from my Etsy shop.